I'm Jackie, Port Tampa Bay, Chair this TAC meeting, and
Phil Wilkerson, FDP.
Joe Gross, Hillsborough County. Jack Shanks, Temple Terrace.
Mike Donnell, EPC.
Code Compliance Sciences.
Maggie Winter, USF.
Amber Smith, you're ready for Smithland.
Megan Blanchard, Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council.
Rick Kugler, Planning Commission.
I don't
Well, I think you need to mute yourself, please. Thank you. I'm Sean College. I'm former Riverport staff and temporary Riverport advisor. Let's go with that.
Diego Guerra, Riverport TAC staff.
Katrina Corcoran, Planning Commission staff and the lead on the team that Diego works for. So sitting in for my own knowledge today.
Will Rushing, citizen, Hillsborough County.
I also want to introduce Commissioner Kugler. He's the Planning Commission representative to the TAC.
Thank you.
Yes.
Rick Kugler.
And then
online.
we have Joel Brown. You want to introduce yourself?
Joel, citizen appointee, City of Tampa.
Chair.
Vice Chair as well.
Yes.
Then Heather Maggio is online as well, City of Tampa.
Hello, Heather Maggio with the City of Tampa. For some reason, our video is not accessible under this. I don't know why. I know it's working. I just don't know why you guys can't access it, but I can hear you good.
Joel, are you seeing us?
Yeah, I can see everyone.
It's be on your end, Heather.
Yeah, it must be on my end. I can't see any. I can see Joel and I can see the room. I just can't see the other participants or myself, which is odd.
Hopefully that'll correct itself. Otherwise, I know it's worked for me to just log out and then try to log back in and see if the connection fixes itself. And then anybody else online, Gail? Reese?
He has our recording secretary.
Okay. And then Daniel?
He's our IT.
ID, okay. I was already covered. Did everybody in the back present their name and who they're with?
Hi, Anna Rittenauer, Clearview Land Design.
Gordon Schrader with Clearview Land Design.
I'm Candy Ford with the law firm of Warden.
Great. Did we miss anybody?
I'm Melissa Leinhardt, I'm Planning Commission staff. I'm Jillian Massey, also Planning Commission staff.
Wonderful. Thank you all. I think we captured everybody. All right, if everybody could stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? Hearing none. Oh, public comment.
Did I turn this up? Okay. Cami Corbett with the law firm of Ward and Henderson. I'm not familiar with how you set your agendas or how things get on your agenda. I happen to be the applicant representative for items 6B and 6C. 6B is, in my opinion, is premature to be in front of this board. It has been continued to the January cycle, and that applicant is currently making changes and planning to make changes. So I think personally, as the applicant's representative, it's premature to present that one to you this afternoon. Those are my comments on that. I think if you spend time on that, you're going to be having to redo everything because we're making changes to that amendment. So it's not going to be that it is before you in the staff presentation. And given that, again, it's a little unusual to me that as an applicant, my application, information about the application is being presented to this board without the opportunity for me to also make an presentation. So just like that.
Thank you. Acknowledged. Is there any other public comment? We will move on to our next agenda item, which would be approval of the previous meeting summary from September 16th, 2025. Hopefully everybody had a chance to review those. Is there a motion to approve the minutes, or does anybody have any edits?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Joel. Is there a second for motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. All right. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, moving to approve the September 16, 2025 meeting minutes. Next will be our presentations. Item 6A is the community-based design using nature-based solutions along urban Hillsborough River in Tampa.
All right. Is that working, microphone? I am not loud, but yes,
It doesn't amplify, it's just for recording purposes.
gotcha. All right, well, I'm Brian Cook. I'm the Director of Urban Design and Applied Sciences. Unfortunately, Dr. Pinkwang couldn't make it today. He's taking care of his mother. And we have Maggie Winter, who's with the Florida Center for Community Design Research, University of South Florida. What you see on here is the team. We had a pretty big team for this one. And this is the phase 2, and this was the second phase of a process, grant funded process. And kind of interesting, not directed by, say, the city or county. This project was a grant application through the university to that organization. For the National Academics Gulf Research Program. And so was really directed by the research and through the kind of investigations of the project, a little bit detached from the city's purview there. So we have a lot of material. This project has been around for quite some time. And so I don't know if it's worth like taking a poll or what, but we have a lot of slides in here. And the 3 areas that we had to discuss are the community outreach that went along with 3 different site projects that were developed. And then Dr. Wang had done some interesting research about compound flooding during the hurricanes last year as part of this project. And then we have the development of the 3 projects and what their proposed designs are and status of those. So I don't know if that's a question to Diego, but if there's any input on that, we could kind of tailor this to be the right amount of time.
Do you want to tailor it down to any of those specific topic areas that the TAC have?
So what I got out of that was community outreach, updated evaluation of the storm,
It's a kind of a,
and then
yeah,
3 development plans?
yes.
Okay. Does anybody want to hear in this group regarding the community outreach? Have we already heard about the community outreach? That's what I thought. Okay. I would go for focusing on the updated evaluation and then where we are with the development plans. Are there any oppositions to that? Speak now. Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, well, we'll show the background slide here, right? This is funded from the National Academics Gulf Research Program. The goals stated, engaging the communities to co-design these projects, which became a little bit difficult because when you don't have commitment from the municipal organization, right? Like to try to develop a project with the community where you don't necessarily have a commitment from whoever would be responsible for implementing that. That's a little bit of a challenge and something that we went through I will also say that seems to be a bit of a challenge with nature-based solutions in general. This is part of our findings that'll be part of the report is the way to actually implement nature-based solutions takes collaboration, especially between silos in a government agency in terms of who funds it, but also maintenance. And these are some really interesting things we've developed and found out through the process.
Oh, it's just at a scale that isn't natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So goal 2, looking at nature-based solutions and then engaging the stakeholders again. So here's our 3 sites that came out of the phase 1 work. We have Rowlett Park, Rowlett Park up by the dam, River Tower and Sulphur Springs Park, and then Riverside Gardens Park. So we found the issues at each site. So in Rowlett Park and Sulphur Springs, there's a stormwater from the surrounding area that goes through or directly adjacent to these sites. And that water, because it's part of an older system, is directly discharged into the river without any kind of treatment. And then Riverside Gardens, we were more looking at a bank stabilization and erosion reduction for erosion and that kind of thing. So the concepts became, and I'll go through these different sites, is Rowlett Park was daylighting the buried stormwater culvert that goes through the site. At Sulphur Springs, it was green water that's in the pipes around the site and diverting those into River Tower Park, into like a large scale stormwater treatment area. And then at Riverside Gardens was an offset shoreline protection, like living shoreline protection area and additional marsh to stabilize that edge. So we did outreach. So here's that section of things. We were involved with the community and got feedback best as we could there. I'm not going to get deep into this, but one of the outcomes of this is that Dr. Wang and his group did a bathymetric survey of the river. So some nice data there. If that's needed, or if anybody wants to reference that, they can reach out to Dr. Wang. And so you're seeing, and then they did some analysis based on the storms last year about what's the compound flooding, the stormwater, which is the stormwater coming into the river from the on land areas, but with also the surge that comes out from the coast.
And they did some research too on not just the quantity, but the quality of the water and salinity.
Right. Yeah, they did a profile assessment of the salinity gradient within the river. There are a lot of parts, and if any of these are piquing any kind of curiosity and we're not addressing them, feel free to reach out after and we can go through that a little bit. So with those scenarios, model validation, right? The model was lining up with the same events. And I'll show one of these, but there is a movie that shows the change of the river. I think this is the movie. Yeah. So you'll see the color slightly changing, matching up with the legend on the top, which is about the kind of sequence of the water levels changing during the flood events of Zephyrine. Or maybe it's just a scenario run of Hurricane Milton's rain. Okay, so this was just with Milton's rain.
Are the colors indicating salinity?
No, that's
Quantity.
Quantity.
The
thank you.
height.
Okay.
right. And then there's another video with negative surge showing the negative surge. And then there was another study showing the combination of Milton rain with Helene inundation, right? So like being able to take these different things, now they're modeled, and then putting those things together to understand what that would do. So I'm not going to try to get into all of the finite results of that, but if that piques of anybody's interest, we can follow up. to advance. So. Okay. So then as far as the projects go, Riverside Garden Park is the first one we'll start with, just north of the Columbus. On the west side of the river.
So it's the northern terminus of what will be the river walk on the west side.
And so this one, for study purposes, we broke it into two areas. One is the tributary that's coming in, which we found out was named Waterfall Creek. And then the actual shoreline along the river. So one of the things with this project is we looked at with Waterfall Creek, what's the overall contributing area to that tributary? And it's quite large, and you can imagine this area in kind of a West Tampa type situation is a lot of older development without stormwater capture. So that water is being collected and discharged right into that tributary through an outfall. So at that tributary, there were also some, that's a little bit tough to see, but we were doing some analysis on like bank stabilization, like where are the trouble spots? So we looked at that a little bit. But one of the bigger ideas with this is if we could intercept that large culvert that's delivering all that water to Watermelon Creek and potentially use some kind of like vault system. It's a dense urban environment, so you don't necessarily have a surface area with a large surface area to be able to do some stormwater treatment. So a vault might be an opportunity. And so referencing what they did in Encore, which is a development scale or watershed scale intercept of stormwater into the top image showing the existing condition at Encore. And then the bottom image showing the park that is 100% constructed over 100% of stormwater. That whole park is. So that was one of the ideas, is that you could intercept that big culvert that discharges that water and create some kind of capture along the shoreline. This is what it looks like currently. The idea was to basically take that riprap edge and offset it about 10 to 15 feet and then plant marsh in there to continue to build up a layer of protection along the shoreline with plantings and hardened living substrate. So you can see the wave energy in this photo from boats and then it's going against the shoreline and can cause erosion, and then with sea level rise over time continue to do that. So we're looking at that.
I think one of the interesting things about this site too is the community's interest in how, because it's a low-lying, narrow site, that it might be applicable towards private property solutions as well for living shorelines along the privatized solutions.
Like as a pilot study or as an example, like a reference site to show people what they could do by planting 10 feet or less in front of their say a seawall or their existing condition and what they can do behind that, how that would look. So that was the extent of
Any other
the,
question?
yeah.
Yeah, before you move on to the next site, for Riverside Gardens Park, since there's already been quite a bit of planting that's been done by the city of Tampa and Parks and some other groups, are you guys working with what's existing there and building and adding to that?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and we did site visits with City of Tampa employees as well, just to make sure we weren't going in the wrong direction.
Another aspect of this side that we got into was about the park maintenance. And if we could create like a maintenance program for the Parks and Rec division to maybe mow less closer to the water. So another one of the findings or one of the recommendations for the project.
Lower maintenance cost.
That's gas.
On the artificial reef piece, is that more for stabilization or actually, because you don't have the salinity there to do what a traditional reef do?
Right. It's more for stabilization and potential accretement of the soil behind. Kind of like a dune, you build up the grasses and then that accretes and it kind of helps to build up. And over time, that becomes a system of protection for that
So
shoreline.
like oyster prisms or something.
There's some slight oyster presence there. It's interesting because the water is very, very fresh there, I think is what it's saying.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Seasonally, yeah, high variability. Yeah,
How far apart are those offshore breakwaters? Have you consulted with FWC on gaps?
yeah, so we did a full pre-application process. We met with DEP, the EPC, and the Army Corps, actually, we did for this one. But we did a whole pre-application process to understand, so I think it's, the rule is either 5 or 6 foot for the manatee gaps. And then there's other, like how far offshore you can go without getting any individual permits. And then there's actually a federal channel that goes through this part of the river. So, yeah, there's a lot of that, and that is also in the report, the summaries of those pre-application meetings.
Right, and so the offshore breakwaters, they're gonna be high enough above a high tide elevation, so they'll be visible.
Correct.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then on the shoreline, have you guys talked about maybe adding no-mow signage along the boundary that you guys want?
Yeah, potentially. It would have to be something orchestrated through Parks and Rec,
Wonderful.
which they seemed interested in. But that was not necessarily part of this project, so it was put in as a recommendation, but not like followed through to completion.
Last, maybe the last one.
It's your meeting, so yeah.
That area, it does transition between being salinity and freshwater. So there are times when some mangroves do grow. Are you guys building that into your overall management plan as well for if there are any recruited mangroves that you guys trim them to a specific view height?
So yeah, we didn't end up creating the full management plan. It was more a recommendation. Like our scope kind of geared towards this, so there was a recommendation to follow up with this creation of a maintenance and management plan. One of the things we were thinking for this area in our brainstorming activities is that one way to get around that, because the mangroves will grow tall, which they are on some parts of the site, is to use potential like kayak launch or some kind of boardwalk or some way of putting almost like a structure into the system of mangroves so that people can access the edge and get the visual thing that they're looking for, while also building up a resilient shoreline with mangrove coverage.
So kind of like an elevated boardwalk overlook.
Yeah.
Essentially in the next page.
Yeah.
Okay.
In this area where there's still, areas where you don't have enough salinity for the red mangrove, can you plant white mangroves as well?
So I don't know about white mangrove, but definitely get into more freshwater plantings.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, just because mangroves are so good at self-propagating.
Yeah.
We've noticed that most of our planting recommendations have been freshwater, shoreline. Shoreline had.
Like lilies and that sort of thing? Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I will say, the mangroves will recruit themselves. It's usually the herbaceous native plants that they have a harder time taking root and recruiting. So that's why a lot of times for living shorelines and mitigation sites, you'll see that they're planting the native herbaceous, and then the expectation is likely the natural recruitment of mangroves will come in.
Yeah, and I think the residents around there are making sure that it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
There's a lot of cold picking. So,
They want their view. So that's why I was saying you might want to go, I don't know how far along you guys really are, but you might want to go ahead and just talk to the EPC and embed that in the management plan for a minimum height of trimming, of maintenance trimming, just so you guys don't have to fight about it later on once it's in.
moving on. Second site is River Tower and Sulphur Springs Parks. We did focus on River Tower, which is this old movie theater, drive-in movie theater area on Bird. And the River Tower is probably the most iconic piece of this. And so from an urban design standpoint, so what we started looking at was the distances and dimensions of this site. So you're about 540 feet deep, which is very tough to patrol from you, not even from a, like an officer point of view, but from a pedestrian and public use point of view. You don't have that eyes on the street kind of thing going on, and so there are nefarious activities happening, especially on the west side, and the trees, and then on the east side of the trees. So, the distance from the street being one of the urban design issues of the site. And so moving that forward, we also did a similar study looking at the watershed that contributes to this area. The outfall, so this watershed, actually you can see the site. I don't know if I have a cursor here, but it's the very bottom of all that red blob, and just on the left, right there, it's actually not within this contributing watershed, which then is put into the river underneath the 275 bridge. So this site is directly adjacent to all of that, but not necessarily part of it. But it is a big contributing area of that was developed quite a while ago. Some existing site conditions. The site, in a way, already has its own little bit of a basin, which then has the overflow that goes this little culvert piece that allows the water to go into the river. So this is the existing section of the site. If you're looking at Bird being up the street on the right side and the river being on the left side. So our idea was to exaggerate the basin quality of the site and to excavate it out even more to create a large scale wetland piece that could also capture and store water, treat it before it then is discharged into the river. And so then rendered that out, thinking about plants. And so what the opportunity here is to create something that is really like a large scale kind of cypress garden with boardwalks going through it. And so this became like the sketch plan. So what you're seeing is that whole green area would be where water is stored, or water would be directed to and captured. The squiggly lines going through it, I'm missing the labels, so I'm trying to make up for that here. The lines, the kind of parallel lines zigzagging through that could be boardwalks. And then the kind of trapezoidal shape on the west side of that would be like a large scale public use area to host their events. They have some really special, significant events there at the River Tower. And then the rest of the site would mostly be same as it was, except on the north side, you see the parking at the north side directly adjacent to Bird, with some playground space that would be directly adjacent to that, maybe filling in some of the canopy. So this was our conceptual design. And then this is the function of that conceptual design. So the stormwater pipes that are surrounding the area, we could tap into those basically and pull off of them, bring that water into the site, create this big cypress wetland area. And you can see the public space that stands out in the middle. And then that's really small for this presentation. But what we found is that by doing this, we could, we did the technical calculations, is that we could remove about 135, that's kilograms, what is it? 246 pounds of nitrogen a year and about 57 pounds of phosphorus a year. So it's a pretty substantial reduction of the nutrients going into this. This is all modeled based on contextual land use and all stuff, very technical. So a lot of benefit shown by that. And this project actually just recently, so the city, I would say the 3 projects, is most interested in this one. And so this project was put onto the hazard mitigation plans, the local mitigation strategy project list. And after hurricanes Helene and Milton came through, there was a scoring criteria and all of that. And this project actually was ranked #1 for the whole county. And so will likely be funded through the HMVP funds from FEMA. So this project does seem like it has a chance to be moved forward. The kind of caveat here is that FEMA is funding infrastructure, right? They don't really spend money on pedestrian things like seats and lighting and all that kind of stuff. So Parks and Rec has to take up the slack on the recreational and pedestrian oriented components, while FEMA would pay for the infrastructural components. So kind of interesting. And I will say there's a lot of, we do a lot of work in this area, and there's a way of framing things to get money, and we're kind of good at that. So that I think helped to push this project forward and be able to be funded by FEMA.
Can we go back to the, one of the conceptual plan vendors? Is the outfall where it naturally outfalls now, are there any improvements to that, to the
No.
river?
And that would actually be the grayed out white arrow that's at the bottom middle of the screen there. So what this project does is it diverts water from the existing system, which goes to that outfall. And so instead of the whole system going to that outfall, we would pull off of the existing pipes and pull that water into the site where the more bright white triangle arrow is.
So the existing outfall you're asking about isn't an outfall for the urbanized portions of the neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah, so right now, the big capture area that Brian showed on the first one, that all just shoots out under the highway, and it's not.
Which is
it's not the white, yeah.
Yes.
So the outfall that is at the park only is for the park.
Okay.
Yeah,
But then proposed
yeah.
is to tap into the existing system and extend a pipe out of that would go into the site at that other
So
area.
diverting the big urban capture into this park and using it.
A portion of it.
Yeah.
Not all of it.
Not all of it. Got you. So part of the FDOT roadway right away, is that gonna go into the park, or is it gonna stay on its own trajectory?
We've worked pretty hard just with the history of this park, and Brian can probably speak more to it, but FDOT has had their eye on the park as stormwater capture in the past, and the city's worked pretty hard not to let that happen, so keeping it separate, I think, is one of the priorities for the FDOT, stormwater management.
So the main goal is this is going to clean up the water quality from the residential basin area primarily. Is that?
Right, not from the DOT right away and work, but from the sites to the north, which is that old Kmart site, big parking lot and the surrounding area.
So how does this basin outfall into the river?
Yeah, so the way, because this is, we got a little more technical with it. There's a first stage sediment basin, so that the initial outfall would drop into that, and you're dropping out as much sediment as you possibly can, maybe a year. That then overflows into the larger basin, which would be trying to keep that as shallow, like more shallow, so that it's kind of a wetland condition with pipes and all of that. And so there would be like a 2-stage, and then, really it's more, retention. The water would stay on site and percolate through. But if needed, there would be an overflow that would then allow the water to go into the river.
A controllable overflow gate.
More like the elevation is set, so that I think it's the way we have designed this is that 100-year storm even is captured as retention, like it doesn't need to flow into the river. It would 100% of that would be captured on site and be able to infiltrate over time.
And that area that you're talking about, that I call the Cypress retention area, would you say it's roughly in like the third easternmost part, the lower third easternmost part, where the boardwalk starts from?
Yeah, so as you, I guess as you can pass under 270. And then,
Like the towers at the eastern, to me, the towers at the eastern end.
The western end.
Western, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So this would be at the east, this retention is at
Eastern
the
half of the
eastern
site,
half. Okay.
which is now currently that big open grassy area. Yeah.
And that probably will not affect the, like when the Philharmonic plays or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's why we made sure to include this large, like have this designed open space area that is set up for those kind of special events and to provide enough space for that.
Dry land.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly,
perfect.
exactly. And then also a playground and like a kind of treed picnic kind of area, more at the northwest part of the site. So. Right, exactly. Yeah. And so we did speak, we spoke to the community about this, and there was actually, people were fairly in favor of taking up the space for this purpose. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and just being able to tie it into the ongoing community engagement too with the Silver Springs Neighborhood Action Plan that they're working on. So people and all that and what's going on with the pool there. So people had a lot of interest in this and a lot of.
But yeah, very favorable towards doing this kind of wetland park. So the last one's Rowlett Park, which is up by the dam. This is the X-ray version of the aerial. When you look at that, there's that big pipe that comes through the middle. It's a 60-inch by 72-inch box culvert. And looks like that, the bottom left, it's a little steep in that one, but this is also where the discharge point is for the water coming from Silver Springs aquifer for minimum flows and levels. So that other red line there is that discharge point for minimum flows and levels. So in a similar sort of way, we were looking at the site and how it's constructed. You can see the big culvert underneath the surface. And at that part where the red circle is, there's kind of a break in the site topographically. So we thought that would be a spot where we could daylight that culvert into an excavated basin. That again would be a first stage sediment dropout kind of basin that then would have a weir and then overflow into a wetland system, which sort of already exists. We would be extending it further to the east. So the kind of lighter green area that's at the west side of the site adjacent to the river already has a very wetland type quality, and the idea would be to extend that further to the east. And that's what the existing one looks like. And then there are bridges that go over, there's trails that go on the side of it. So we also were thinking about the trail system and trying to make sure places are activated. You know, when you put a lot of vegetation that deep into a site, safety is definitely a concern. So we were thinking about that also. But we did the same kind of analysis, and for this one, we could pull out 286 pounds of nitrogen a year and 61.5 pounds of phosphorus a year as our, at least through the model. That's what the model says. But really a good amount of nutrient reduction going into the Hillsborough River. If you were thinking about these two projects, that's about 500 pounds of nitrogen removal a year. And so it's good. So that's our last slide.
Any questions regarding street park locations? No?
Yeah, this is Heather with the city of Tampa. So I just have to, can you hear me all?
Yes.
Okay, I have a couple of questions for clarification. So initially, the grant was built in with the sustainability department, i.e. WIT, correct? For the three planned potential projects. And then
The
that
grant
was
through USF.
USF in collaboration with sustainability? No.
Yeah, I think WIT was like knew the project was going on.
Okay, so now you're at this stage. And the potential for the development then would be on Parks and Recreation. Is that who you're working with now? Brad Suter, who would be the one you could get an approval for any potential site? These are all parks, so they would get their first
Yeah, so
approval.
this is a great question and something we've been discussing in our office, because one of the findings is that the city in a way doesn't have a mechanism to actually, you might know better than us, but the city doesn't have a mechanism to fully implement this through a specific department. So you have stormwater department, which will only fund, they have their money and they can fund stormwater projects. That money's all allocated. So any kind of stormwater project would have to be funded by a grant. Stormwater department doesn't have extra money to take on these new kinds of projects. So
Yeah, that was part B of my question. Who are you working with in stormwater? And I would, recommend that you contact Ben.
Yeah, we've been working closely with Alex.
Yeah.
The process.
Yeah,
And
because Ben
he's
is
aware of it.
Yeah, great.
It's
And then,
just
but
they
as
can't provide
ultimate
the
decision,
limitations.
yeah,
What's
just
that?
to let you know, Brad is the one you're gonna contact for approvals, and then Stormwater wouldn't be taking the lead. They would be following Brad's approvals and then collaborating that way. So those are a couple of contacts for you that you could reach out to for, I don't know how this is gonna go through the City of Tampa administration. It's kind of a parks property, but a stormwater project sort of, but then you're going to have some recreation built into it, because my understanding of this tower project was years ago, we had initially planned a stormwater project and it did not succeed through the approval process. In other words, Parks and Recreation wanted to utilize this property for I guess, enjoyment, recreation, etc. So that's where it was left and put on the shelf. There was a design bill, and then I know that I had given that to Ping to review just for the purposes of this, and just to let you know that that's where my understanding is on all three of these projects. And then the one that's closest to our new West Side River Tower, Nina is your contact. She's the PM, and she just presented last month on the newest Riverwalk developments. That was all I had. I just wanted to give you some context that maybe that was something that you wanted to
Yeah, and
pursue.
Brad and Parks and Rec have been part of the process, and they have the extended version of this slideshow and the final.
That's
report.
great. Yeah, definitely. Because I'm sure Brad is very interested in anything that goes on in his parks.
So what would be your next step? Since you said the Sulphur Tower Park got rated at a higher, more importance level with the city, would that be the next project, the first project that you guys would be proposing?
Yeah, and again, we're consultants doing work to make recommendations for the owners, which would be the city. So,
And the grant has come to completion. So the academic side of it is wrapping up with recommendations.
so those, all of our report and recommendations went to the city. The city then proposed to the local communication strategy working group to put this project on the project list for their local mitigation strategy, and which then made it so that when the emergency funding came through, this project could be funded through those funds. And then there was a scoring exercise, and this came to the top. So that project then goes to the state, which then goes to the feds to say this is a project we want to do. And from what I've heard recently from Kayla, who's the Sustainability and Resilience Officer for City of Tampa, Kayla Casale, that this project, it sounds like things are working well through that, but the timeline on those FEMA grants are very long to become contracted. So this project it may take years for it to be initiated, but it's expected that it will.
Thank you guys so much for the update.
Thank you for having us.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next two presentations are informational presentations. They're both topics of plan amendments that have been submitted. They're very early in the process. We staff analysis has not been conducted yet. Agency review comments have not been received back from the agency, from outside agencies yet. As the representative for one of the applicants stated, one was continued. So the TAC has two options. With that one, you can either hear it now and as it is, with the understanding that there are modifications, and depending on what you as a group choose, it can either be presented later on to the board or not, or continue it to February. To your next meeting, February.
How does everybody feel about at least getting like an initial explanation of what the plan amendment is going to be? So that when we do hear the update in the new year, when it's more ready to be presented, we have a little bit more background. I see shaking heads, yes. Any nays? Okay, would you just give an overview of it then? Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Leinhardt. I'm planning commission staff here, working for Plan Hillsborough. This is a text amendment that was presented back to the planning commissioners back in September. This was originally part of the January cycle of plan amendments. So we typically brief those to the planning commission and the board of county commissioners in September generally here. And then in October, we have the public hearing typically at the planning commission and the board. The applicant did continue this item to the January cycle of plan amendments. So that wouldn't mean a public hearing until the spring of next year. But just based on having kind of a foundational piece in play before you hear the next presentation, understanding that the applicant may be revising their application, I'm just presenting what we have here currently that is submitted and what the planning commission did see. Again, a consistency finding has not been made. This is just a briefing, so it's an informational kind of presentation. So this is HCCPA 25-21. That's how we number our plan amendments. It's just sequential. This is essentially a privately initiated text amendment to the comprehensive plan. It's currently limited to 1,954 acres of land that's west of US 301, and I do have a graphic in just a minute, just south of the Pasco County border. There are four main changes that the applicant has proposed as of now to date. Currently, the density that is allowed to be considered in this future land use category, which is called planned environmental community 1 to 2. The 1 to 2 refers to one dwelling unit per 2 gross acres, which again is the adopted text today. The applicant is requesting at this point to change that to one dwelling unit per 1 gross acre, so doubling the density on the site. They're also, as part of the current request, asking to reduce the open space preservation component of the text requirement from 40%, which is what it reads today, to 20% of the site. They are asking to delete policy language restricting unit count in certain areas of the site. And that was really, from my understanding, based on transportation concurrency, which we do not have to, oh, what did I do? Sorry. And then the fourth one is really just a nomenclature change. They just would like to remove the 1 to 2 from the second portion of the description of the land use category. So here's the general. What am I doing? Something sensitive. I keep touching something. I don't know what. I'm just gonna keep my hands up here. This is the general location at the top of the map. You can see the star on the far northern area, again, 25-20. This is showing everything that was originally part of the July cycle of plan amendments. Again, this has been continued to the January cycle. We have 4 cycles a year. The site is in the rural area and there's no community plan associated with this site. This is a zoomed in map of the plan category area itself. This planned environmental community 1 to 2 was a new category that was created. It was privately initiated back in 2005, so quite some time ago. The effect of the new category was really an increase in density on properties in the rural area, but that these areas would be served by public water and wastewater in exchange for certain environmental protection enhancements. Again, this was privately initiated back in 2005 and has not been developed to date. So at this point in time, this green area is the planned environmental community 1 to 2 future land use categories. It is the only place in unincorporated Hillsborough County where this is located. It's within the green area outlined by the black hash marks. Again, we're on the west side of Highway 301, just south of the Pasco County border. This is exactly the same presentation that I gave to the planning commissioner, so it was relevant to them, that last bullet, that they recently reviewed another plan amendment associated with the site, HCCPA 24-32, which eliminated a trail connection requirement that was required directly to the south. That's Hillsborough River State Park. I would touch this and show you on the mouse, but I'm afraid I'm gonna mess something up, so thank you. That's perfect. Thank you. So there was a trail connection requirement eliminated. That was part of the original text. And that was actually in conjunction with the Florida DEP. The applicant, again, that was also privately initiated. They had a support letter from the Office of Park Planning with the DEP saying that they thought that there was a significant environmental and safety reason to not have that trail connection, and that they were satisfied that they had internal trail connections within the park itself. So again, the existing language outlines the density is limited to 1 dwelling unit per 2 gross acres. There's a current open space preservation requirement of 40% of the site. There's adopted policy referencing unit counts in certain areas, again, based on transportation concurrency, which we no longer have. And then the category name is planned environmental community 1 to 2. The applicant is proposing to increase the density to 1 dwelling unit per 1 gross acre, to reduce the open space preservation to 20% of the total site, delete the transportation concurrency language in total, and then again, clean up the name and just have planned environmental community as the name itself. That is all I have for you today, and that kind of gives you a nice foundation and framework for the next presentation. I'm here for any questions that you have.
Okay, I have questions.
Go right ahead. I'll hold like it.
Is this tract of land the only tract of land that is under the planned environmental community plan?
Yes. Yes. At this time.
What is the purpose of what is there a genesis for the reduction of the 40% of saved open space to reduce to the 20%?
That is privately initiated, so this is just the text that was submitted to us for review. We haven't conducted a full review of that yet. I mean, the applicant is here. I'm not sure if you wanted them to answer that because they're the ones that submitted the application and just might have that intimate knowledge. Sure.
In corporate with Hillward and Henderson again. There's actually, one of the reasons why I said it was kind of premature to hear this. Really, this is kind of like a blunt instrument, like when we filed it, we sort of brainstorming on how we could adjust this. There's really only one small portion of the site where we want to add just a few units, probably 60 or 70 units. And because this category is so unique and specialized, like we don't need a reduction of open space across the entire category. We don't actually need to do the density increase across the entire category. So we've gone back to the drawing board, based on similar questions, and we're working through that. And we hope that we're going to come back with something that's much more refined and not so sweeping from changes. So that's why I was kind of saying it's a little bit early to talk about this, because it's probably not going to look like this if and when it comes back to you again.
No, that's great. And is the reason for this proposal, is it because of the updated housing market where we are today?
Sure, absolutely. And we're really just, we have one area of the site that is not under protection. I think Ms. Leinert said it's not developed. It is, in fact. We have construction plans. It's been preserved the way it was intended to be preserved. And there's just one area over on the eastern side where there is some developable activity where we'd like to do some equestrian lots, large lot equestrian lots to complement the rest of the community, which is a larger lot, sort of open space as it was intended and envisioned. So,
thank you. That's very helpful. Good question.
Yes, I'm trying to imagine what it is, and of course it's up in the air right now, but the idea is you could place, I think they were looking at 1,000 units perhaps in that property. 1,000 units each on their own plot, or clustered together in a certain area, leaving many, many acres still preserved. Which way are we going with that? Is it?
we're staying exactly in that same theme, and that's why we need to refine the amendment. I agree that what was presented would potentially dramatically change that. We don't need to do that to accomplish this applicant. And the applicant on the next item are not the same applicant. They're completely different people doing two completely different things. So this applicant owns the balance of what's on west of US 301, and has largely developed the community out as it was envisioned to cluster and to preserve. There are many acres of preservation for upland habitat, wetland habitat. There are all kinds of habitat being protected. So we're going in that direction. What we're trying to accomplish is one little area on the eastern edge where there is some developable land that's not protected, where they'd like to add some additional.
Okay, that helps me a lot, see it better. And if we get, I know it looks on the face of it, doubling the housing per acre and cutting down in half the open space seems like going in the wrong direction. But if I can get a rough idea of roughly what they're expecting to be as clustered housing and what will be kept as preserved, like half and half or something like that, might be a better guide for me than trying to go from the FAR.
This particular property has been designed and developed with the full 40% open space, with the full protection of the river, with full protection of everything that was envisioned when this category was originally adopted. So it's been developed just like that. And they just have some uplands where they'd like to get some additional larger lots to complement the community. So we're trying to find a way to do that without this big blunt instrument that we have to buy. So, and I live on the river, so I can care very much about the river. So thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for that proposed item information?
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the second informational presentation, HC/CPA 25-0-37, pardon, for the 40 Ranch Road map amendment.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Jillian Massey, also with Planning Commission staff, Plan Hillsborough. I think that Melissa did a really good job at summarizing the nature of this land use designation, the purpose of it, and what some of the requirements are as it relates to environmental features when a site is developed in this category. So this particular plan amendment is a land use change, a map amendment. So a change to our future land use map. It's at 40 Ranch Road and it's called HCCPA 25-37. So this is another privately initiated amendment that we've received as part of our October cycle of plan amendments. This is a large scale amendment as it's over 50 acres. This is about 7,944 acres of land. And this is on the east side of US Highway 301. So right across the way from the area that we were just previously talking about. Currently, the site is made up of a number of land use designations, agricultural mining, 1 to 20, meaning 1 dwelling unit per 20 acres. Agricultural 1 to 10, meaning 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres. Agricultural rural 1 to 5, which meaning 1 dwelling unit per 5 gross acres, and natural preservation. The applicant is asking for all of this land to be changed to the planned environmental community 1 to 2 category that Melissa was previously describing. So again, this amendment is part of our October cycle of plan amendments. The site is located in the very northeast portion of the county up by Pasco, in the rural area, and there's no community plan associated with this particular site. So as you can see here, this is outlined, the subject site outlined in pink. It's right across the way from the previous site we were just talking about. Thank you. So it's bound by US Highway 301 on the west side. The Pasco County border is on the north. There's, do I keep touching? Am I doing?
No, you're fine. You look good here.
It's very sensitive. Have my backpack.
I just was like reading the paper. It's very sensitive. Okay. Paul Buckman Highway, our county line, our county road, 39 is on the east side. And Quail Meadow Road is on the about the south side here. So again, the site's made up of a number of land use designations. You can see them highlighted here on the map. Bolded here in the legend, agricultural mining, 1 to 20, agricultural 1 to 10, agricultural rural 1 to 5, and natural preservation. The lime green that you see on the left top corner is the planned environmental 1 to 2 category of the site that we previously were just talking about. So as you can see, it's right across the way from the existing piece of property, which is the only one in the county that currently can put this designation at this point in time. So this is just showing the proposed land use designation of planned environmental community 1 to 2. This category allows for a range of uses, including agriculture, residential, neighborhood commercial, office uses, activity-based recreation and mixed-use projects, and it specifically prohibits mining, feedlots, and industrial uses. So this is going to be presented to the Planning Commission in the next couple of weeks as a briefing. What we outlined here is just the potential maximum impact that the change could have. So this in no way outlines what the applicant may propose down the road at a rezoning stage or a site development. But this is just some simple math of, you know, currently under the combination of land use designations, the site has 704 potential dwelling units could be considered and around 86 million square feet of non-residential uses. And if it were to be changed to the planned environmental community 1 to 2 category, we could be looking at a maximum potential of around 3,972 dwelling units, and the non-residential potential would remain around the same. But again, we're talking about maximum potential. As we know, this site has a lot of environmentally sensitive land, wildlife habitat, wetland, floodways, et cetera. So that's really just the summary of the request as it relates to the land use change. We did want to just bring this to you for informational purposes, as it's located directly to the east of the, Hillsborough River State Park. And that's, the Hillsborough River does go across 301 and does touch some of this site. So we just wanted to bring it to you for informational purposes. As I said, this will be briefed to our planning commission and to the board in December. This is a large scale amendment, so there are multiple board hearings required. But we would be looking at a potential adoption hearing sometime in the spring of next year. So that concludes the information that I have on this request at this time. If you have any questions.
So sometimes the land use stuff, I get mixed in my head because that's not my bailiwick. So if the land use amendment that we first saw with the language change of the density and yada yada, that gets approved, then your 40 ranch would be the second site to be potentially adopted under that land use.
Well, the text in the future land use section that describes the category is already adopted. So if this were to be adopted, then yes, it would be the second site with that designation. Disregarding what the applicant is proposing to change the text, but yes, there is currently adopted language. And if this were to be approved, then yes, it would be the second site with that designation. Did that help to answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And did I understand that right when you said that there is no community plan associated with the site yet? So is it just zoned PD right now, or it's just zoned at the different ag categories right now?
Yeah, I think there's probably a mix of zoning districts right now. We're mainly looking at future land use designations, which are the designations that you'll find on our future land use map and the comprehensive plan, which is the long range plan for development. So we're really not looking at the or regulatory layers as it relates to the site development, which are the zoning districts. But the community plan really just relates to the fact that the unincorporated county has, I think it's 22 or 23 now, adopted community plans that live in the livable communities element in our comprehensive plan. So it just so happens that this site does not sit within the boundaries of any of those community plans. That's really all that means.
Okay, thank you. That helps me understand why we're talking about this. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, when I get home, I'll study what planned environmental community characteristics are. But for you, what makes this a planned environmental community? What are the qualities that you see in it?
So this is a private amendment. So
Yep.
an applicant is coming asking to change this to this particular land use designation. At this point in time, we haven't really done any analysis on the policies that may or may not be applicable. Really, as Diego mentioned in the early stages where, we've sent it out to other commenting agencies that have more technical expertise, and hoping to get some back in the next few weeks. So at this point in time, we can't really say whether it would be consistent or inconsistent with our current comprehensive plan policies. It's something that we would be, reviewing and analyzing in the coming weeks. And right now, we're just kind of, sharing the information about the request. That's really where we're at right now.
And then, if anybody have any more questions for her, did you want to speak up?
Sure. Cammy Corbett with Hillsborough Henderson, representing the property owners here. This is the Thomas family. They've owned this land for many, many, many years, and they farmed this land for many years. As we all know, farming is diminishing, and what Mr. Thomas wants to do is ensure the protection of the environmental features of this community. He's got the river, there's 2,000 acres that's already in a conservation easement. He is not part of that previous amendment, not part of it at all. In fact, was pretty upset when he heard about it, so he's doing what he can do to make it go in the other direction. It is definitely, he wants to preserve the land. He doesn't like the spot pattern of large single-family homes on well and septic up in this area with all this protected habitat in the river. And so for him, his true intent is to place this in a category that would protect this land in the long term.
Thank you both for all three of you for all of the information. Since we changed this to more of an informational presentation, does anybody have any desire to make action or make recommendations, or are we good with just the informational presentation?
I believe 6B is continued, but 6C is not. That's going forward next schedule.
So with 6B, you can ask for it to come back in February, for it to be presented, as it's more flushed out. You can request that. For the other one, if the TAC wants to recommend it be sent to the river board for presentation with a specific type of recommendation, that's all on you as well. A recommendation would be, for them, would be to provide something to either the planning commission or the BOCC, a letter of support, letter of non-support, whatever it be, to the TAC for discussion.
I guess I'm just confused because if item B is being continued until next year for the actual land use amendment language change, how can we make a vote on the second item regarding 40 Ranch Road where they're proposing to change land use to that new category that got continued until next year? Like, it's like the horse before the cart kind of thing in my mind, but I might be confused.
Again, for the record, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff, I completely understand that it does feel maybe a bit out of order, because I would say to address it more cleanly, perhaps having the text solidified first might make people more comfortable. We might also have the same comment from the planning commissioners when this comes before them, and perhaps the Board of County Commissioners. We haven't had those meetings yet. Again, the applicant for bold items is here, so she may have some insight as to that, but the reason we presented here today is that for Jillian's item, for the map amendment for the additional almost 8,000 acres, for context setting, we wanted to present my amendment to say, what is the text potentially changing to, understanding that it's probably going to be requested to be augmented and modified again. So we don't have that information quite at this time. So the map amendment would just be to the category. So whatever the category changes, that could be flushed out at a later date. I understand your perspective. They've just kind of overlapped in a different way than perhaps it could have been worked out a little bit differently. But at this point, we have to review what we have in cycle at the time, and this is just how it's been flushed out right now.
Thank you. And yes, by all means, do add that clarification for my own understanding.
Henderson, this applicant on the map amendment is perfectly happy with the PEC category as it is. They're not advocating for the change. They're not making the application in hopes of tacking onto someone else's, a totally unrelated party's application. And so from my perspective, that's why I was hesitant to have you even hear the other item first, because now you're completely confused. What are we recommending? So what the ask is for this application for Mr. Thomas is to be able to modify from agricultural mining, which is some pretty heavy stuff, in agricultural, which again allows the single family developments on well and septic, up to 700 of them near this environmental land, And he would like to preserve it just as the PEC is today and doesn't care what happens with that other amendment. And I think if you were concerned about that, you could express a concern that, so we're not, if it's PEC today, that's one thing, but if it's PEC, if it's modified the way we saw, then we don't want that. I mean, I think that's one way to tackle it.
Thank you for that additional clarification. That helped me understand it a little bit better. I hope that helped everybody else.
Yeah, I would, largely agree with everything I'm hearing. I mean, if I could help with the conversation. Sick fees, I think you all agree you're gonna hear that later when it gets more refined. The question on 6C, I mean, that's currently pending. You heard what it is now and what it is being asked to be under PEC, as we currently understand PEC, because that's what it is now. We don't know if it's ever gonna change. It's appropriate for the River Board in January to hear this about it. You're their technical advisory council, so they, I'm sure, would love to hear any and all comments or opinions from you all regarding that item 6C. If you have any comments, concerns, support, whatever, if you, I'm sure that's your role as technical advisor.
So, item 6B, the CPA 25-21 Plan Environment Community Text Amendment. I would make a motion to postpone that to come back to the TAC in February 2026.
Second.
Second, any opposed? Okay, so item 6B will be coming back. Item 6C, CPA 25-37 for the 40 Ranch Road map amendment only. Do we have a motion to present to the Hillsborough River Board at our next meeting?
Their next meeting.
Their next meeting. Do I have a motion? Thank you. Motion. One motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joel. Is there any opposed?
Just to present it to, just so that it gets on their agenda.
Well, let me just, if I could just clarify. So the chair via the staff set their agenda. You don't set their agenda, but if you have, it is the plan, this is applicable to the river to have it on their agenda. That's going to happen. Question is, do you have any comments, concerns, support, anything you want to put on the record that you'd like the TAC to put on the record to the River Board as they hear this item?
Thank you.
Well, my concern is that, as Ms. Corbett explained, the end goal is preservation rather than development. Because they can both, you can both put the houses on it. It's how you place them. It can change them from being to me an environmental community as opposed to just another development.
Present that comment to. Is there any other comments, questions, or concerns regarding our recommendations of action? None. Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Ask what date is the report in January? The planning commission is January 12th, which would be the scheduled public hearing.
January 27th, I believe.
Okay, so that would be after the planning commission finding. Okay. I just wanted to understand the timeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the 2026 meeting calendar for the Hillsborough River Technical Advisory Group.
So in your packets is the proposed 2026 meeting calendar. It maintains the same schedule that you currently all have. No changes. So
Anybody have any comments regarding these the calendar dates? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the 2026 meeting dates? Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Second. Thank you, seconded. We'll consider the 2026 meeting calendar approved. Is there any further action needed on that, Diego?
Just your permit.
Approved. All right. Moving along to the consistency recommendations for the Lake Construction project. And the first one up is Port Tampa Bay Standard Work Permit number 25-016. It is a new standard work permit from the city of Tampa for the West River Walk. Did you?
Yeah. I can do it. I can do it from here.
Oh, you can do it.
Yeah. It's not, what does the agenda say for page number?
It's 24.
Okay.
There we go. Screen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, this is the West Riverwalk City of Tampa overall scope of work. This is north on that side of you. The northern underpass of the pedestrian walkway is going to be from underneath the expressway, going north underneath Orange Street Bridge, going over the Hillsborough River and then connecting on private property that is our to Parker Roost. They have an agreement for the city of Tampa Riverwalk to be connected to their shoreline. The second proposed structure is just a U-shaped overlook structure. And then the third and final structure being proposed is this underpass, pedestrian and multimodal walkway as well, going underneath the Trailside Drive, thank you, bridge at the mouth of Hillsborough River, and this is the opening into the bay. And I will say that there is some revised drawings that the consultant is working on regarding a little bit more information from the proposed structures, most waterward end to the existing true navigational vessel travel lane for boats where the fenders are. And then I've also asked them to provide the distance to the edge of the channel boundary for vessels. And I've done that, and I've asked that for each of these three structures at the most waterward extent into the river. Does anybody have any questions?
That's Bay Shore Boulevard, isn't it? Going that way to the right? Bottom
Yes.
right? Is that correct? Bay Shore Boulevard, it's right there.
Yes.
And then the river walk that adjoins Bay Shore Boulevard, the big sidewalk is right there where the red connector goes to it. Okay, good, thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions? Questions? Okay, all right. Moving on to the second project, which is also a Port Authority project. Minor work permit 24-016, and I would like to make one correction that it is a permit revision application. So it is a requested modification. We already issued an original permit for Hillsborough County Lettuce Lake Park to replace a majority of the Lettuce Lake Park elevated boardwalk. That already got permitted in the original permit, and that is completed. They went back out and then discovered that they truly should have gone ahead and replaced the observational tower structure that is there. At first, they weren't planning on replacing it. They thought it would be fine to keep. But after completing the rest of the boardwalk replacement, they went back, looked at the tower, and so this permit revision review is strictly for the replacement of the existing 25 by 25 foot observational tower, that and that alone. Does anybody have any questions? And it is basically going to be in-kind replacement with just some minor modifications for accommodating a little bit more like ADA kind of thing. But for the most part, it is practically a one-to-one in-kind replacement. No questions? Okay, you guys are easy. All right, moving on to the third and final consistency review is going to be EPC's minor work permit application review 76906. And this one is also a correction. It is a revision number 2 for them.
Correct, yeah, so the original permit that we issued for this property was for riprap on 6404 North Otis Avenue. The revision was to add an additional approximately 50 linear feet of riprap on the adjacent right-of-way, Otis Street right-of-way, which the applicant received or in the process of receiving a revision to their right-of-way permit in order for the city to approve the work taking place in that right-of-way. So it's riprap in between two. There's some existing material on site, and then on both adjacent properties, there's shoreline hardening. So this riprap will be going in the middle of that. Any questions or concerns? Yeah.
The drawings, it just showed that the dock is under construction. Would that be from the original permit?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, so the original permit was for the dock structures. The first revision was for the riprap on his property, and now this permit is for the revision on the adjacent right of way.
Just for additional 50 feet of riprap.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
And the city of Tampa right-of-way permit was issued or is being issued?
They're in the process of issuing it, and we condition the minor work permit so that work can't take place under it unless that new right-of-way permit's issued.
Wonderful. I did see that stipulation reference. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
This is just a repair operation, right? We're not expanding hardened shorelines in this case.
Essentially, yeah, there's existing hardening on there. It's dilapidated a lot over time where there's not a whole lot of material out there, but there definitely was shoreline hardening at one point that they're coming in and re-nourishing.
Okay, good. Do you know if we have any means of monitoring speeds on because I know that's often leads to the wake that can be destructive to anything. Do we have any ongoing program that monitors for speeds?
Not that I know of for monitoring. Yeah, not that I know of for monitoring.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
So FWC is the actual agency that oversees boating, vessel speed zones. They are the regulatory agency that oversees that. The city of Tampa Marine Unit through the PD, they also work with FWC on, giving out citations or giving warnings for any like boating speeding going on.
They're over at Davis Island, aren't they?
That is where they are stationed, yes.
Yes, I know in some cases that, like in Crystal River, that people are always calling in, boats because of manatees mainly. But here it's just once in a while you see somebody who doesn't seem to be obeying the speed limits.
Yes, the city of Tampa did have it's like a 49 channel marker replacement permit that got extended, that was issued by the port, and they are in the process, just literally in the last like 30 days of starting that work. So there's a lot of signs that were down or missing or damaged, and so a lot of it is replacing those signs. So hopefully that will help with people actually remembering that there are speed zones, even though there's not a sign there right now. So that is coming soon, but it's gonna take probably till the end of the year, I think, was the schedule of how long it's gonna take to put in all those signs. But if anybody ever has any speeding issues with the boating speed zones, you can always reach out to the port. And we can give you the FWC and the City of Tampa Marine Unit Patrol phone numbers.
Okay, thank you.
To call directly, or any of the citizens to call directly if they need to put it on their schedule to just keep a closer eye on it in the area.
Okay.
And same thing with unincorporated Hillsborough County. They have a Marine Unit for unincorporated Hillsborough County too. Any other questions regarding the riprap revision number 2 project? No? Okay. Do we all want to go ahead and make a motion for consistency review for items A, B, and C all at once? Lots of shaking heads, yes, okay. We will make a motion to find items A, B, and C consistent. Do we have a motion?
I move to find the items consistent.
Do we have a second motion? Do we have any opposed? Hearing no opposition, moving to find all 3 ICE projects consistent. Recommendations to the River Board. Last item on our agenda is other business. Does anybody have any other business? Yes.
You go.
You go.
All right, same thing.
Okay.
I just wanted to compliment the awards, the design awards, and also thank our host who's online, Joel. Is that what you were going to do? No. I know what you're going to say.
Thank you, yeah. So I wanted to mention this morning in the governing board meeting for Southwest Florida Water Management District, the governing board did approve a phase 1 water shortage order. We will continue to monitor conditions, as you're well aware, river levels, lakes levels continue to decline regionally. We're at a 13 inch deficit, so it's not different than the previous modified phase 1 large shortage order before the hurricanes. This is more all encompassing throughout the water management district. We're locally, as of November 12th, the aquifer level for the central aquifer, which includes Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, Fold, was at 27% full. Last year after the hurricanes, of course, it was at 85% full. The public water supply is doing fine, but as far as the rainfall level locally, the historic average January to November is about 49.94 inches. And we're at 38.42. And November, which is traditionally dry,
historically is about 1.88 inches and we're at 0.15. So definitely a good time to be very cognizant of the water use. The water shortage order talks about eliminating wasteful use. So this includes using a hose without a nozzle or watering sidewalks or roads. The local governments can stick to whatever schedule at this point that they currently have. So if they are on 2 day a week, that's okay. If they're on 1 day a week, they can stay on 1 day a week. However, the local government enforcement is now responsible because the water shortage order with reporting to us their enforcement activities. So that includes if they give out warnings or violations or those kinds of things, which Joe is very well aware of because he did a great job last time. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but Amber, I would like to say that I observed City of Tampa Water Department this morning doing enforcement in my neighborhood, so they're out there too.
Yeah.
Thank you for that update. Very much. Everybody keep an eye on your lawn watering. And I did want to say a personal thank you for Joel, for the awards banquet table that was just, it was very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Tico. Is there any other business? Last minute? No. Okay, hearing none, we are adjourned.